Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another daily Marvel Snap video. So immediately after the patch, I feel like most people just threw Leader to the side. After his rework, he becomes much more difficult to use, but I do think he still has a place in our meta. So his change went from copying everything that was played on that turn to copying only the cards that were played to the right. So now instead of just throwing him in any kind of deck list, you have to have a deck that is tailored around being able to get value from him on that last turn. And so that's where initially my mind went to Spider-Man. If we can Spider-Man lock the lane that we intend to leader in, we can swing that location and maintain the lead in the location to the right so that we can make sure that we find a way to win. But of course, that is a little bit too linear of a play line. And so that is where I teched in Kingpin. I feel like Kingpin and Leader now are very similar cards. You want to build your deck around having and maintaining initiative, all leading up to a last turn power play, depending on what cards you've drawn into. And so Kingpin in this list can create mind games, so it can force your opponent to play into the wrong direction. During testing, one of my favorite games was that I played Kingpin mid, knowing that that would force the opponent into dropping their cards into that middle location to avoid an arrow last turn play, and I dropped a Leader to the left, which swung the left lane in my favor, and it also copied the power that they dropped into middle to allow me to maintain the win. And so sometimes he's played as a mind game, other times you're actually going to get that value from him. You can do Spider-Man and Kingpin on turn 5 with your Zabu, and then that gives the opponent less time to react. They can't play around that particular play line, and then all of a sudden you can do a Magneto or an Arrow to move key cards over into that lane, and as a result, cause them to be destroyed. And so with having those multiple play lines and those multiple play paths, that creates this air of uncertainty for the opponent. Not only are they going to be playing around the Magneto, the Arrow into the Kingpin lane, they're also playing around a Spider-Man lock. Sometimes if you have initiative, you can just Spider-Man lock and then drop your last turn power in another lane to find your win. They're also going to have to play around the last turn Leader play, and the information that you get from White Queen can be absolutely critical. And so overall in my testing, this has been one of the most fun decks that I've played because you can really start outthinking your opponent, and it's not one of those decks that are incredibly difficult to navigate, but you have so many paths that it reminds me of the old Electro ramp decks where you have an answer to just about anything the opponent throws your way. And so with the brief deck explanation out of the way, we're going to go ahead and jump over into a couple of games. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, first up we have Sorry. The first location is the sewer system, which they end up playing their hood. So if they are running a junk deck and they run Viper, that will hurt a little bit. Otherwise, if they use something like Carnage, we're not as worried about it. We do have our Zabu, so we'll be able to enable our 4-cost cards. We only have a few in the list, but it is nice to be able to throw Kingpin and Spider-Man down on turn 5. That way they have as little time as possible to react to the play. And so I think we're going to play our Zabu into Mojo World. We do have Arrow to move their cards over. We have Magneto to pull their 3 or 4-cost cards into whatever lane we want to, which is going to be the Spider-Man lockdown lane. It sounds a little bit weird, but I think the playline here is going to be just playing rocks into Mojo World. We're going to hold our Spider-Man for next turn. Next turn, we can do Spider-Man into the sewer system. So we can do Spider-Man and Kingpin into the sewer system. As long as we have the lead in Mojo World, at that point, we can use Arrow to pull their cards over. A Killmonger would definitely hurt us for sure. But otherwise, I think we're absolutely fine. They go with the rock play as well. So we could try to do a Spider-Man lock in this lane, and then we're just looking for how we win from there. But I like the idea of being able to lock down the left lane. We know that our Magneto has a good target in the Zabu, which would also leave them with 3 in the Mojo World lane. So they would no longer get that 100-point lead. And if they throw any other 3 or 4-cost cards in there this turn, so Hazmat's not going to do it. Typhoid Mary and Subterranea is interesting, but we can also yank that over onto our side of the board. They're going to be able to play into Mojo World. But what are they going to play? I'm curious. So right now we are losing. We're tied here. We're losing Subterranea by 14. We're winning the sewer system by 5. So even if we played Arrow to pull their cards over, we wouldn't be able to necessarily match that power push. But we did put them in a situation where they didn't feel like they could win. We could have always done Leader to copy whatever they played into Mojo World to make sure we stayed tied there. Or we have the Magneto to pull their Typhoid Mary, their Zabu out of those key lanes. Or I think the better play line was going to be our Arrow into a Sunspot in Mojo World. That would give us the 100-point lead in Mojo World, and then we of course are going to win the sewer system And so then we should win 2 out of the 3. And so it was a very good retreat on their end. We will take the 1 cube. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Ball and Squirrel. The first location is Hala. So cards there after turn 4 will get destroyed. Typically we don't push too much power into the far left lane because that is our ideal lane to lock down. But with the middle location being Wakanda, it's actually not going to be a great location for Kingpin if we draw into it. We're going to go ahead and just throw our armor into Wakanda. We want it to protect our sunspot, and that's really just about it. Otherwise, it could start overlapping with the Kingpin destruction, and we don't want that to be a potential issue down the line. Now, they do have a Daredevil, so they're going to be able to get a read on turn 5. For the turn 5 play, if they ramp up, they might be able to do some kind of big play, or they could go with a Professor X lock. They're not going to be able to go with Galactus, though, because of the X-Mansion. After this turn, we're both going to get cards in the X-Mansion lane, and what we're hoping for is that ours is going to be better than theirs. We're hoping that the RNG favors us in this match, but if not, that's okay as well. We get a Moon Girl, which does hurt our hand, but it actually is kind of cool because we don't run a Moon Girl in this deck because we don't typically care to do the double Spider-Man lockdown, but in this scenario, we're going to be able to. So I think what we're going to do, our aim is to win Wakanda with a Spider-Man and a leader. So a Spider-Man on 5, a leader on 6. We're going to play White Queen into the X-Mansion. We will also play our first Spider-Man. We don't necessarily care about, unless they play a lot of cards, we don't necessarily care about fully locking it down on the last turn because we do have the cheeky leader interaction. We want to try to surprise them into it. Ooh, so we still a Destroyer. Doing a leader now could be scary. Oh no, don't pull into the leader that we just pulled. Oh no, that missed both of our leaders. Oh, it's awful. Why? Why, Ball and Squirrel? Okay, so we get our second Spider-Man lock, but it's not going to be effective over the last game or over the last turn. We do get 30 power in the far left lane though. Oh man, what is this game? Oh no. So they're only able to play into Wakanda this turn, so that really limits and restricts them and where they're able to play. But we're currently winning in Hala and Wakanda. I think what we're going to go with is an arrow to pull their cards over into X-Mansion. That is going to be our losing lane. From there on turn 6, that should allow us to do a leader into the far left lane because we'll be winning Wakanda by 3 still. And so we can copy whatever their last turn play is, as long as it's not another dang Destroyer. Okay, so they do play their 1 card into Wakanda. We pull it out, it is the Destroyer. So we know that that is no longer on the table, that is gone, which is good. That is what we needed to know. As long as they don't have a, I guess if they had a big Shang-Chi, that's fine. They would take out these 2, but Leader's not going to be within Shang-Chi range. Our Spider-Man's not within Shang-Chi range. And so I think we're going to be able to sneak away the win because they don't have a second Destroyer. We're going to utilize our leader, the newly updated leader, and we get the second retreat. So with this deck, and whenever we have it set up, a lot of times you're going to get people that are kind of skittish. We probably need to play it a little bit more aggressively to be able to really maximize on those big cube games. All right, next up we have his dudeness. The first location is Washington, D.C. We don't have any vanilla cards that are going to benefit from that location, but maybe we can find some ways to make it work. So if we do armor into X-Mansion, that pretty much locks in the fact that we're going to do our Kingpin and Spider-Man combo into the Washington, D.C. lane. And I like this playline. We do have the arrow. So if we can steal and have initiative going into that last turn, once we have this lane Spider-Man locked, we can guarantee the cards pull over with our arrow, and we can make sure that we win as a result. I'm going to go ahead and snap off of it. The thing that I haven't been doing very consistently with this deck is playing it aggressively. Whenever you get an ideal Kingpin lock or an ideal leader play, the leader play is a little bit more surprising, but the Kingpin lock is pretty transparent, pretty prevalent, and so a lot of times it is kind of like that control factor where you're going to force your opponent into retreating. And so we do get Zabu here. We're going to play Zabu into Atlantis. That's going to allow us to do both Spider-Man and Kingpin on turn 5 to try to get that kind of surprise factor on the opponent. All right, and they do play over into the left lane. They do 0, which is going to make their armor a vanilla card. So it's going to get the +3 from Washington, D.C., which is such a great call. Okay, so we get Baku, they get Iceman. And Iceman hits our arrow, which is absolutely fine. We would typically play that on turn 6 anyways. And here we're in a kind of tricky spot. So we could try to use Kingpin this turn and kind of alter where they're going to play. Because if you see a Kingpin, you're probably going to either try to fill up that lane or try to play counter cards in there, and it could just be a diversion for being able to play a Spider-Man into a leader in Washington, D.C. I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and play the Kingpin into Atlantis. The middle location with armor, maybe eventually armor's not the play line we go with here. Maybe it's something a little bit better, I don't know. But with the Kingpin in Atlantis, that should kind of shift or augment their thinking. If I was them, I would probably play my cards over into that Kingpin lane just as a way to try to make sure that they can't get pulled over there. If they don't play anything into Washington, D.C. this turn, what we can do is we can Spider-Man lock. A leader play would actually allow us to win Washington, D.C. It could copy what they play into the X-Mansion. Maybe we could find our win or our win condition just from that alone. Now, if they have any kind of counter movement cards, maybe they sneak away the win. A Magneto would be really good over in Atlantis, but no, they cap out the X-Mansion lane on a turn early. Ooh, oh no. Okay, so they play first here. If they only play one card, one massive, huge card, a leader in X-Mansion is going to win it for us because we're going to swing the middle location with our leader. We would copy what they play in Atlantis. They can't play here. They can't play here. We get a solid read on leader, and I think it'll be a surprise drop. Hopefully they only play the one card. They go first, so we'll be able to copy it. I think we're going to sneak 4 cubes here. They do only play one card. They play a 60 power Red Skull. We are going to copy the 60 power Red Skull to maintain our lead. We swing X-Mansion. We swing Atlantis. They said it couldn't be done. Is it bad that I feel less dirty about using leader because you have to set it up now, whereas before you could just kind of throw it onto the board wherever? But now you have to try to specifically play and set up that play line. And when it works, it is beautiful. What a beautiful finisher. We will take the 4 cubes. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Lonerto. The first location is Wakanda, so that is not going to be our destruction lane. However, it can be the lane that we push to gain some initiative off of our Sunspot, where if we have to play our mana inefficiently, we can retain some of that value. And it looks like they're going to go with the same style of play. Now, we still have all of our key cards in our deck, besides the Zabu and Spider-Man. Those are pretty important pieces of our setup. Now, they go with an armor into the far right lane, so the Kingpin play line is looking less and less effective every single turn. We are going to play Zabu to get the card cost reduction. Next turn, maybe we go with a Crossbones and an armor. If we go Crossbones, it'll probably have to be into Wakanda, because, wow, they fill up the raft. Goodness. Okay, so it's a Thanos deck, which they have that one capped out already. If they play a Blue Marvel, that's going to push it up to 12. As long as we can beat 12 power there, we might be okay. And then with them having as much spacing restriction as they do have, we can really start locking them down in like Wakanda, in Savage Land, potentially. I think we're in an okay spot. Not great, but not terrible either. So they do the Reality Stone that changes the far left Wakanda. And so now cards that cost 1, 2, or 3 can't be played there. The things that Thanos likes to run are cards that cost 1, 2, and 3. They do have the free resource from the raft that they haven't played yet. Oh no, the Zabu actually hurts with the Crimson Cosmos. We're going to Spider-Man lock them in the Savage Land. I'm going to play our armor into the raft. That way, on the last turn, we can play one of our Magnetos, maybe, depending on what they drop here and how much power they push. Right now, we're losing the raft. The Leech is... Okay, the Leech is interesting. We do have a pretty big lead in the Crimson Cosmos. They do have the free resource that they got, so we have to keep that in mind as we're playing here. We are tied in the Savage Land. We are tied in the raft, which is not exactly where we want it to be. If we were winning in the raft, if we were winning in Savage Land, that would be much more beneficial for us. I think we do end up losing this one, but I am going to let it play out. They have 2 resources that they'll play here. If they can get over our 15 power, our 12 power, which they should be able to, the Magneto is big. They pull over our White Queen, though, which does help us just a touch. The Arnim Zola pushes their Sunspot, which hurts them just a touch. Very brave call using the Arnim Zola there, knowing that it would destroy something. I'm guessing they thought it would destroy, or hoping that it would destroy their Magneto, but we were able to sneak enough power into Savage Land, enough power into Crimson Cosmos. What an awkward game. We didn't get either our Kingpin or our leader. Both were still in our deck, but we were able to luckily squeeze out the win. All right, next up we have Zero, and the first location is the Crimson Cosmos. They play a Korg and we draw into the rock immediately, unfortunately. I'm not going to play it. There's no reason for us to play it. It just clogs up our board. But we do have the Dark Dimension to try to do maybe a surprise leader play into pushing value over into the far right lane, which turns out to be Bar with No Name. Oh, it's something, all right. We're going to hide our Kingpin in the Dark Dimension. Let's play the White Queen. If we can use every single bit of our energy here, then we can actually maintain a tie in Bar with No Name. But if we skip with even one energy whatsoever, then we will end up losing. So the Rock Slide adds 2 rocks into our deck, as you can see. We draw into one of them immediately. What is this luck? We draw into one immediately. We have 1 left in our deck. We do copy their Devil Dino from their hand, so we know that they have that. I'm gonna go with an arrow in the Dark Dimension. On the last turn, we'll go with a leader into the Crimson Cosmos. That way we maintain our tie in Bar with No Name, and maybe we can sneak out a cheeky win. So the White Queen gives them our leader, so they're going to know that we have the potential leader play line. Maybe they go with a leader play line of their own in Crimson Cosmos. I don't know. If they do, then we'll actually pull theirs out with an arrow and destroy it in the Dark Dimension. It's going to make it hard for them to figure out where to play. So they use their leader as well, which is actually okay because they have the Mystique, which copies nothing. We have the Kingpin and the arrow that is going to destroy their leader. So them knowing that we had leader kind of altered or augmented what direction they were going to play in and allowed us to find a way to win. So the mind games with leader, the mind games with Kingpin is something that I am loving about this deck that I've brewed. Is that you can surprise your opponent. At least for now, you can surprise your opponent with what and how much you can do. And that that arrow destruction on the last turn was insane. I'm thinking they probably had a Hawk in their hand. They preemptively dropped the Mystique, which would have copied the last card that they played. Or no, they could have went Devil Dino, right? They could have went Devil Dino in Crimson Cosmos, and Mystique would have copied it. Why didn't they go with that play line? It would have been 10 extra power there. We would have tied. They actually had an out with the Devil Dino that we know that they had. But with that one, we are going to go ahead and end the video here. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. If you did, make sure to leave it a like and a comment down below. And as always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.